Hey, MBA hopefuls, we are on the air with MBA Waves. MBA Waves is talking all things business and education, streaming live every Tuesday on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Every week, bringing you up close and personal with business schools from all around the world and getting your questions answered about various topics in business and education. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this episode today. And this week, we are talking all about AIGAC. And just what is AIGAC? Well, we're going to find out today. As always, I'm your host, Eric Lucrezia, along with my co-host, Bara Sapir. How you doing, Bara?
I'm good. Hi, everyone.
And we'd like to introduce our guest. I guess we'll start with past president and board member Nupur Gupta. Want to say hi, Nupur?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Eric and Bara. Such a pleasure to be here. Hi, all. My name is Nupur Gupta. I'm based in New Delhi. I've been a part of AIGAC since 2014 and been serving on the board since 2017. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And with that, I'll pass it back to you, Eric.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for being here. And of course, Adam Markus, who's also on the board and I think he's co-chair of the communications committee with AIGAC, if I got that right.
Hi, I'm Adam. I've been an admissions consultant since 2001, joined AIGAC after it started in 2007, and happy to be here. I'm based in Sapporo, Japan.
Nice. Okay, so we're truly all over the world. We got Japan, India, France, and the States. Sounds very AIGAC. It sounds very MBA. So let's talk about it. Let's just dive right into it because a lot of people don't know what AIGAC stands for. So I'm going to give our two guests the first chance to crack that code. What is AIGAC?
Nupur, why don't you take it?
Absolutely, Adam. Happy to get us started. So AIGAC stands for Association of International Graduate Admissions Consultants. And as Adam pointed out earlier, the group was started towards the end of 2006, incorporated in California as a nonprofit with the intention of setting industry standards in graduate admissions. And the goal of the organization is to set ethical standards and professional development among our members and stakeholders worldwide. And AIGAC members commit to maintaining the highest standards of integrity and competence in interacting with clients, school representatives, and other consultants. So that's in a nutshell a little bit about AIGAC. And Adam, would you like to add more to that?
Sure. I think one of the things that's great about AIGAC is it does bring together people from all over the world and members from all over the world who work with different client bases in some cases. And it's also very much focused on building strong relationships with the schools and especially with business schools. While the organization refers to graduate admissions overall, it's primarily been focused on itself in terms of what it does on business school graduate admissions, so mostly MBA. And one of the things that's really happened with the organization over the years is that it's been able to build strong relationships with schools, so much so that our annual conferences are hosted by major business schools. And I think one of the things that really distinguishes an AIGAC consultant is the fact that we do have tight relationships with major business schools from all over the world.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And I don't know, I guess I love a good origin story. Like what problem needed to be solved when AIGAC was created? What was going on back then? You said it was around 2005, 6, right? Like what was the landscape like in the business school world vis-a-vis consultants, candidates that AIGAC was born out of?
There was a lot of distrust, and we were perceived quite negatively. We were perceived as basically helping applicants cheat. And that was the perception by some schools. That changed both because of AIGAC and specifically because of certain schools. So certain admissions consulting firms. So for example, I used to work with a firm called Princeton Review of Japan, which became AGOS. That company had some good relationships with some schools. Accepted, which was another major player, also had some good relationships. So I think it was about a collective coming together and establishing standards so that it was perceived that there was actually a whole group of consultants that were worth dealing with. And so, we started with some good relationships, and as schools saw that there were good relationships with admissions consultants and that there were ethical admissions consultants, that built up over time. So it's really a cumulative kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, things have changed dramatically since then, since AIGAC was first created, and I think everyone gets to benefit from that, like the admissions consultants, but also the schools and candidates alike. When back in the day, it was probably considered taboo. It was maybe if someone did choose to use a consultant, they really probably kept it under wraps. And now these days, it's much more open and normalized, right?
Yes. I also think that that's partially the reality of people in general being much more comfortable with coaching, consulting overall, not just limited to admissions, but life coaching, career coaching, all of that. So I think that's also part of the process of it. And also another aspect is, at this point, there's a lot of former admissions officers who are now consultants. And so, that's also part of how that happened.
Yeah, I mean, I was there, and now I'm doing this. So yeah, go ahead, Bart.
Just to get a sense,
you're an example of that. Yes.
Just to get a sense of like what the landscape looked like, even in the test prep world, there were the two mega companies, Princeton Review and Kaplan, and I remember going on Business Week, like listserv, and that's how I met Linda Abraham and a few other people. I mean, there were not many test prep companies at that time at all. No. And I met a few people on there. I mean, literally, I think it was like a listserv. And I got involved with AIGAC really early on. I mean, at first they wouldn't even have non-admissions consultant folks being members. And I remember I helped put together the New York event, I think before I was even able to be officially part of the organization. And then a year or so later, they had the affiliate membership, which is when I got involved. And then I really got involved with putting together the New York, because we had, Adam, were you at that event?
No, I wasn't at that one.
We went to a place where we all cooked a meal together and then ate it.
Cool.
At the conference. It was super fun. Yeah.
Oh, Graham was talking about that. Another one of the guys who was there since the beginning.
Yeah.
And, we actually met up here in Paris a couple of days ago for the first time. So it definitely is a community. And I think that's what it kind of speaks to as the world maybe has become more open to, like you mentioned, coaching, life coaching, a more collaborative approach to things, sort of interdependence. And not to mention, like, mentorship is really a subject in schools and companies alike. I mean, everyone at major business schools and corporations is all about mentorship. So coaching goes alongside with that. And why would you not welcome that in the admissions process if you want to be the best version of yourself as a candidate, just like you would want to as a student, and you would want to as a professional. So it just makes total sense that this has made leaps and bounds since where it was in 2005.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add to that, previously where we would have schools almost advising applicants not to use consultants, more recently we've had, as an example, talk, even recommending consultants from AIGAC on one of their blogs. So just to add to what Adam, you and Eric were saying.
Yeah, it's certainly changed. I mean, it's come to the point too where, one of the things we do is we help applicants figure out where to apply to, but also help them cross, especially international applicants, cross the cultural barriers. And that's definitely part of helping prepare applicants so that an admissions office can properly assess them.
Yeah.
And that's appreciated by admissions offices. I mean, I've heard it multiple times where they think that what we're doing is really helping them sort out applicants and get a better understand and also better understand the applicant because we've helped the applicant communicate more effectively.
Absolutely. So, I mean, go ahead, Bara. Sorry.
We often say on MBA Waves, like, that so much of the work of applying to programs is really just practice for business school and practice for life. So really, all of these steps forward, each one of them give the applicant an opportunity to just act out and be who they need to be in the application process, in business school, and as a professional that's a world-class professional. So so coming together, in AIGAC, where you also have a brain trust, right, of so many different advisors to learn from each other and from our applicants, it's just a very fertile community for an applicant to consider. You don't just get an admissions consultant from AIGAC. You also get all of the knowledge and I'm not going to say connection because that has the wrong connotation, but the brain trust of all of the touch points that those folks, all those members have within AIGAC. It's just a very fertile environment.
Yeah, there's so much free information sharing. That's one of the things I appreciate with a lot of like the different groups that people connect on. People seem to be very open, sharing insights they may get from one school or another among other applicants. What's this school have going on right now? Also, trends outside of the schools, like when we were seeing, I don't know, GMAT waivers, whether due to COVID or to mass tech layoffs, anything to do with rankings, all sorts of topics, and it's really refreshing to see that kind of positive and open sharing. And that I think has really helped me, and I think a lot of my colleagues would agree, other AIGAC members, that it puts us in a very good position that we're among the most up-to-date, informed people of what the schools are looking for, the criteria they're looking for, the kind of candidate, and how to be successful so we can serve our clients better. That's what's really interesting to me. Excuse me. So, I mean, Nupur and Adam, you both touched on some of the key aspects of AIGAC, meaning that it's about trust, it's about transparency, it's about relationships, it's about quality. But let's get into the weeds. Like, why should someone choose an AIGAC vetted consultant?
Well, I can start with one point, Adam, and maybe pass it on to you if that works.
Sure.
Cool. So an AIGAC member commits to upholding certain principles of good practice. And when I talk about principles, these could be things like putting the interests of clients above their own and insisting that clients write their own essays, advocating that recommenders write their recommendations, and maintaining client confidentiality. And there's a slew of other principles. So that in itself ensures that the consultants are always committed to serving clients and doing what's the right thing for clients alongside other stakeholders. So that's one point that I would like to highlight. And Adam, over to you.
Yeah, another point I would highlight is that you're going to be working with somebody who's experienced, because there is an experience requirement to be a member of AIGAC. Anybody could theoretically say, I'm an admissions consultant, right? Because there's no like official certification or something like that exists. And so our members have been vetted in the sense that they do meet experience requirements, and they've worked with a sufficient number of clients before they can join our organization, and that I think is very critical, because I do think applicants benefit from working with somebody who is experienced.
And ethical standards, right? I mean, that's a huge part of it as well. So I've been on the membership team for maybe 5 years, and we look to see who these people are and what have they done, and I wouldn't say it's a rigorous process. I wouldn't say, I don't want to be you know, it's a fairly rigorous vetting. And so if you do wind up becoming a member of AIGAC, you really are held to the standards that you've put forward, and continue to be at that level. And so anyone who's considering working with an AIGAC admissions consultant can be rest assured and trust that those things are in place. It's super important in the field, because you don't want to work with someone who has a reputation, for example, of writing essays, right, for the applicant, right? If someone, there's people who have applied that we know that they've actually been writing the essays for the applicant, and that's just not kosher, right? So they're not going to be able to be a member of AIGAC if we know that that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that Nupur and I do as board members is vet potential members, and I can tell you, I've just been on the board since August, and we definitely do not admit everyone who applies to our organization, and it is because we do due diligence on anybody who tries to join.
Absolutely. And just to add another point to what Adam and Bara mentioned, another thing that AIGAC consultants do is they're constantly investing in upskilling themselves, in training themselves, maintaining an understanding of current trends, which could be through the different events that are organized by the organization, as well as Bara mentioned, the community itself is fertile ground. So even through interactions internally. So that also adds a lot of value to consultants. I personally can speak to how much value that's added for me by just being a part of the community.
I think in these fields that often, because there's so much independence, that we often are in our own silos. So having a community of peers who understand the questions that are coming up as individuals and the questions coming up, the questions that students have, especially during COVID, right? During COVID, when like our silo was then exponentially more intense, it was just so lovely to know that you had this community of colleagues all around the world who you could connect with. Are there any surprises that either of you have from AIGAC that you want to share, some learnings that you've had as being a member, and really pivotal because you're on the board, that are takeaways?
I mean, I think one of the realities is I realize that, there's a whole bunch of people who go through a similar set of lifestyle issues that I do, because we do have a fairly peculiar work schedule because of deadlines, and very busy before these deadlines, and have periods where we're less busy. And so, knowing that there's in fact a community who shares sort of the reality of my lifestyle is a great support. In terms of schools, I think the thing I've realized is that often, and this is what I've gotten from our conferences, and this, to me, maybe this is the thing that surprised me the most, is we often know more about the schools as a group and how they interact, like the entire ecosystem, than the individual admissions officers, because sometimes they're so siloed in their specific institution that they're not really aware of, for example, the essays that are happening at other schools. And sometimes they are, but it surprises me, like the number of times I've had interactions where it's like they really don't necessarily see the whole picture.
Which is normal, because so much of the time is soaked up in evaluating the people who apply to their school. They probably on a couple of their closest competitors, but not as broadly as we do, because our job is to really know the full landscape.
Exactly.
And that comes with years of practice, years of like streams of previous clients who've been applying for schools X, Y, and Z, who've gotten in and who are now alumni. So not only do we have the experience of, okay, what does this school, what are they looking for? But it's about the people. So much is about the people, and networks of people at school X that we can put you in touch with during your, research and admissions journey. So that's really interesting as well. That's what I find. But let's talk about some of the other major ongoings of AIGAC, because there's the membership, right? But there's a few things, a few key points during the year that I want to talk about. So I don't know who wants to speak about that first. Maybe one of the key things you want to talk about is the very upcoming Applicant Fair.
Yes.
And I know Adam.
So yeah, May 24th. So for anyone who is planning to apply for MBA, this is going to be a great event. We've got 20 schools so far. Maybe that number will go up a bit, but we've got 20 schools participating in the Applicant Fair. That will consist of booths for each school, virtual booths that applicants can go learn more about the individual schools, as well as panel discussions. And so I think it's a great opportunity and an efficient way for applicants to get a better sense of schools. I know as I'm doing initial consultations and starting to work with clients for this coming year, that a lot of people are still sorting out where to apply. And so this event, I think, is extremely helpful for somebody who's at the process of figuring out, especially where they want to go, as well as getting insight into some key aspects of the overall application process through the panel discussions that we're going to be having.
Yeah, exactly. Adam, maybe you could do a little breakdown about how the sessions work. Is it like, because there's a few different formats of applicant fairs, virtual and in person. Some are more like one-to-one, some are small group, open format. Could you describe it a little bit more?
Sure. So we have booths that can be visited, and what happens in the booth will depend on the school. So it might be interpersonal interaction or a set set materials or video that the school is set up in their booth. And then the panel discussions will consist of, say, around 4 school reps with a AIGAC member facilitator on a particular topic. For example, when is the right time to apply to MBA? Or for those who are interested in MBAs outside of the US, we'll have a panel focused on that. So there'll be like 7 panels, as well as panels on financing your MBA and on test prep.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know last year there was about 650 people signed up, if I recall. How many schools were at the App Fair last year?
I don't have the exact number on that. Okay, less than this year.
It's definitely growing. So there's about 20 so far, and
we've got 20 so far, with possibly more joining, but 20 have already.
It's all like M7 or top 20 schools in the
US.
I
mean, like we've got Stanford, we've got INSEAD, we've got ESA, we've got Duke, we've got Georgetown. We can pull up the list.
We've got Booth, Columbia.
Yeah, yes.
And above all, Duke and Georgetown, McDonough, who are both hosting the fair this year.
That is correct.
And they'll have an individual school presentation at some point, right?
They're hosts for the fair.
They're hosts, okay.
Yeah.
Right. I'm still learning how this event's going to work. It's my first time attending this year. A comment came in from Thomas as well. It makes a good point about regarding the benefits of working with AIGAC consultants and the organization itself. I'll just read it. The cumulative knowledge of AIGAC consultants, especially obvious when we get together for conferences, is staggeringly rich. It not only includes technical and factual data about schools, it also brings in a tremendously rich international perspective. And that is absolutely true. Just working closely with Thomas and a few other consultants on the upcoming conference, which we'll talk about in a moment, this June has been such a great experience meeting people from all over the world and hearing their perspectives as we collaborate to create something great this June. how people approach problem solving and so on. It's been really interesting, kind of like an MBA itself.
Yeah, actually, Eric, if we have a minute, I'd just briefly love to touch upon the history of the applicant fair as well.
Of course.
Awesome, thank you. So we launched it in 2020 in response to the pandemic, when there was reduced opportunity for information flow among key stakeholders like applicants and school stakeholders. This was at a time when applicants also had a lot of questions about things like the GMAT not being available, how things were going to work out, and all sorts of things. So our team worked round the clock at breakneck speed, even during the lockdowns, amid personal adversity, and made it happen in record time. We held it on 19th May 2020, and we had all the top schools, including all 7 of the M7 schools. And yeah, and since then we've just been upgrading every single year. We started out off on Zoom, and now, as Adam was talking, since last year we've been doing it on a platform with booths and all of that. So AIGAC remains committed to serving applicants, schools, and adding value to the ecosystem.
Thank you. Yeah. So I was going to ask, Nupur, this could be also you to explain the conference coming up this June. Besides the applicant fair, that's May 24th. This June, I believe 5th through 8th, is the annual conference. Can you share a little bit of what that's about and why we do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just touch upon it briefly. And of course, Eric, you and Thomas can probably talk about it even more, being involved with the committee itself. So every year we've been doing a conference for over a decade. Adam, would you know when it started?
I don't recall when the first one was.
Right. So it's definitely over a decade.
Oh, it's yeah.
Yeah. And we've been organizing our conferences in different locations. As Adam previously mentioned, schools host us. Major schools have been hosting us, be it Stanford, Harvard, Wharton, Columbia this year. And the intention is we generally have the conference over a period of 3 to 5 days, anywhere between that time period. And we have different opportunities to visit specific schools that are hosting us. We travel as well. And for example, this year we're meeting with Columbia, Yale, and Cornell Tech in New York. And then there's a day which is called the All Schools Day, when the different schools convene, which we will be doing at Columbia this year. And we have different exercises, panel discussions. So there's a lot of information exchange. And finally, there's also an opportunity for professional development, which is just members only, which we call AIGAC Afternoon. So those are some of the components that go into the conference. And of course, Adam and Eric, if you'd like to add, that'd be great as well.
Not much to add. I mean, you pretty much covered it. As you mentioned, this year it's hosted by Columbia and Cornell Tech in New York City and Yale up in New Haven. It's about a 2-hour train ride. And I believe we have 42 or so consultants who will be at the event so far. Still taking more registrations. It's another month and a half away. And yeah, really looking forward to exchanging with other consultants, sharing best practices, perhaps some war stories, dealing with some like really current issues, like, for example, like AI and ChatGPT and other such software, has that plays into the admissions process or not? What are the advantages? What are the risks? Is it, for certain people, it's not unethical because this is not another human you're plagiarizing from. We might have to redefine what plagiarism is. This is a big topic for a lot of schools. And I think this conversation may even shape how this is viewed in the future. So very exciting.
Another event that is super popular with the folks that are members of AIGAC is Summer with the Schools. Will one of you talk a little bit about that experience and that series of events?
Sure. That's a closed event. It is only for members, and it's an opportunity for us to meet individually with schools. We facilitate a discussion with one or more members of the admissions team, and they give us insights into their program, what's happening. It is a super learning opportunity for us. In a way, it's much more intensive than at the conference. We're getting a wide perspective. This is a rather intensive opportunity, and it's occurring, throughout the summer, and it really does give us insights, and often, I'd say inside information that the schools don't necessarily make available publicly, and are presenting to us in a way that's extremely efficient as well, for us to keep really abreast of what's going on.
Last year I learned from one of the schools that they accepted the MCAT and the LSAT as an admissions test, which I had never heard about. Like, that was something, to accept the MCAT, it's such a different test from the GMAT and the GRE and the EA, that it was just, do you remember that? I was so surprised when they mentioned it.
Absolutely. I think it was very extreme circumstances following COVID, and schools and institutions were being a little bit flexible, and some have maintained that flexibility. Some have pivoted back to where they were before. But if I could just respond to what Adam said, being a new AIGAC member, I joined just under a year ago, and the summer with the schools was really, really powerful to me. The fact that we had like a full hour or so with admissions directors from all of these top schools. It was like boot camp for admissions consultants over the summer. And I think what's particularly interesting about this year, as some of you may have heard, certainly among AIGAC, which is a topic, there was this like mass exodus among admissions directors in so many schools. Yes. This was something that was reported on in Poets and Quants. This is something that was like all the buzz on LinkedIn for a while. So many well-known, respected, and liked, frankly.
Yes.
Admissions directors and other top-level people at various top institutions all seem to leave around the same time. Was this a COVID effect? I think it depends on the person. But the point is, now there's all these new people in place. And as you very well know, in an organization, when the head changes, the body sometimes follows suit. And that could mean slightly different policies, practices, criteria, whatever. And this could affect the admissions process. So I am really looking forward to this summer in particular, to the Summer with the Schools series, to learn the most up-to-date information to serve my clients best in the following year or so.
Yeah, in particular, we're talking about HBS, Stanford, Columbia, Michigan, those in particular were there. Maybe there's some others, but those are
Kellogg as well, sometime back.
Kellogg, yeah.
No big deal. Some big schools, but
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the additional resources on the AIGAC platform, because there's lots on there. I probably even found all of it.
Sure. So, one of the things that we do have information for applicants, some school information, as well as an accumulation of blog posts and opinion pieces from our members. And we're hoping to build that up even more. And also, for example, on the site, there's a place where you can see links to all our websites. So it is a good resource, and often a jumping off point to finding even deeper resources that are on each member's websites.
Nupur, did you want to add anything?
I think this was great. And maybe just one other thing, which is we also have a member directory. So if somebody's looking for a consultant, there's different filters they can use. They can also go through the entire directory and find an AIGAC consultant, maybe organize different consultations with some consultants and find a fit. When you know that when you're getting an AIGAC consultant, there's somebody who's committed to principles, of ethics and best practices, and the advice they're going to be giving you will be ethical, it will be serving your interests. So I think that's a great resource as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just looking at the website really quickly right now and reminding myself, there are school profiles. A lot of the top schools in the world of MBA programs, they have great information, details about those schools to, as you begin to research and educate yourself on them. There's the link with all the different updated application deadlines. There's advice on finding the right consultant for you. Very much like finding the right MBA, finding the right consultant to work with is also about fit. Loads of advice on letters of recommendations and like you said, the different individual blogs that a lot of the firms provide. Suggestions
test
on
companies
on testing. Yeah, well, so I was just about to get that advice on essays and funding, as well as preparing the interview, and of course the tests, mainly GMAT and GRE, but also TOEFL, LSAT, and Bara. This is your world, so I don't know if you want to say a few words about testing.
Well, I will say that I met some amazing colleagues that work for ETS, and that those relationships have really been fruitful. We've certainly had some of those folks on MBA Waves, right? Mm-hmm. So being able to talk to not the specific person that works on the test, but works in that testing organization has led to really interesting panel discussions. I think we had eGmat, myself, ETS, and GMAC on a panel at MIT a few years ago. And that was a really fruitful conversation because we were talking not only about the test, but also anxiety and, how the student moves through the test. We didn't cover that for too long a time, but I definitely know that we did talk about it. And really being able to have those frank conversations with people that are working in the field. And so it's, you don't really get that with many other organizations at all. There's no other organization in the space that I know of that works with the business school testing in this way.
Absolutely. And Marlena, one of our colleagues and members of AIGAC, has also made a comment. Applicants considering hiring a consultant who works independently, not as part of a large company, might want to know that AIGAC members have a close network that allows any of us to bring up questions and issues with other AIGAC members anonymously for the applicant, of course. We're never alone. Every AIGAC member has access to a global network of information of value to our clients. Well said, Marlena, and that is absolutely true. That's one of those things I'm really grateful for as a member, having that essentially partnership among colleagues that are in the trenches with us, fighting for all of our clients to have the best applications possible and to be the best versions of themselves. Last thing I'll mention is that there is a page on LinkedIn. Just search for AIGAC. You have the name right there, same name as you see in the email address. In the website, which I'll repost right there. Just as a reminder, if you're interested in the applicant fair. Again, an opportunity to be up close and personal with many of the top schools around the world. That is on May 24th. You can register anytime for free now and be part of that event. There is also the website for all the resources we mentioned, advice, finding the right applicant, and anything you want to know. And AIGAC is spelled like that, AIGAC, on LinkedIn as well.
I've got something else to say. There's also, I'm hoping, colleagues in the field that aren't members of AIGAC yet that might be listening to this and considering joining. And we would love to have you become a member and join our family and our community. So if you feel that what we've said here is something that you'd like to hop on and to join our community, please feel free to go onto the website and fill out an application. And we would love to consider you for membership.
Petty's going to love you for that one.
Yes, please.
Well said.
Oops. I'm going to pop up the link to directly register for the fair. I mean, you can find this on the AIGAC website as well, but there's the direct link for registering for the fair, either one. Guys, this has been fantastic. I want to thank you for joining us today. And unless there are some other comments or points you'd like to bring up, we'll wrap it up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Bara.
Yeah,
really appreciated being here. Yeah, appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. Our pleasure. So guys in the audience, if you appreciated this episode, give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. And as always, next Tuesday, MBA Waves is streaming live at 7 p.m. Paris time, 10 a.m. San Francisco time. And we are going to have our 100th episode all about personal branding. Would you buy you? That wraps it up for today. Thank you so much and have a great day or evening, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.